Hey everyone, welcome to 30s, Flirty, and Nerdy. Today I have Angela Bliss here, which is really, really cool because Angela reached out to me to be a guest on this podcast episode, and I am so excited because Angela is also part of the Wellness Weekend Market organizer. If you haven't listened to Danny's episode, go listen to that one because she's another organizer as well. There's four of them, and Angela is one of four. And so I'm really excited because you have such a wild interesting life from what I see in your bio. And in your bio, it states that you were born in London, UK. You have worked and lived in France in your 20s. And in your 30s, you moved to New York, lived in Los Angeles, and you were at Bodrum, Turkey, and you taught yoga on the beach, which I love yoga. So that is awesome. You were fired from your job in LA when you were 35. Then you returned to the UK and decided to never work for anyone else, and that kind of sparked your passion. And that's when your first business launched. And so we said you created many of them, but some didn't work out. And you sold some, and you just have a number of smaller businesses since then. Now you're a creator of Wellness Weekend Markets, and I see you have a yoga purse and cute laces. And I looked up the yoga purses, and they are so cute. For those that don't know what a yoga purse is, it's like a purse that you could put your yoga mat underneath while you could have everything else carried for you, just like a normal purse would, which is really cool. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being a guest on the show, for sharing your story and your journey with us and everything, and being a part of the Wellness Weekend Market, which I'm so excited for. I
Yay!
cannot wait. I'm going to be an attendee. So, yeah, thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So, what made you decide to come on the podcast today? It said that you wanted to talk a little bit here about having a child-free life, and you made that decision in your 20s. You said that you saying yes to opportunities and things like that. So, what was the biggest thing you wanted to talk about that you wanted to share with the
Oh,
friends today?
oh, I just love your podcast. And as I said to you before, I have listened to a whole bunch of them and they were just so interesting. And I thought, oh, you seem such a lovely person. I'd love to just have a chat and, and share a few stories, really.
Thank
And
you
as I
so
said,
much.
looking at my 30s in the rear view mirror,
Mhm.
and I just love, the concept of, what advice would I give to my 30-year-old self? I just love that.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was why I reached out to you.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited because, like I mentioned earlier with you off recording, I've never met you before. So you're the first person that signed up that I don't know. So it's really exciting and fun to get to know someone new. And yeah, let's start with your story. Like, what happened in your 30s? Why did you decide to become child free? Like, what inspired you to do what you do now?
Yeah, so I made the decision in my 20s to live a child-free life. And I just knew it wasn't right for me. And I also knew that as a woman, society has all these ideas of what we should do and how we should live our lives. But there's other ways, and I didn't have any urge, it's not as if I couldn't have children. I tried, there are obviously people who live that life. It was a conscious decision, and it was, unusual. I'm in my 50s, so it was unusual. I certainly didn't have a name or a hashtag or anything cute like that, right? I just knew at an early age that getting married, having kids, that kind of getting a house, that kind of thing wasn't the path for me. And yeah, I just made that conscious decision in my 20s. And then at the time, I was early in my career in tourism in Europe. And I was at the time looking after groups, North American groups that would come into London, and they'd go on a tour of Europe, and I was a tour guide for a while, and I loved that path that I did for about 10 years. I did that most of my 20s.
That's so fun. Tour guide must be really fun because I'm sure you were able to visit other places that you never got to experience before. And with being just you, like you didn't have to worry about having anyone else to take care of and things like that, right?
Right. Right, absolutely. No, absolutely. It is fun being a tour guide and going to places that you've never been before, and you're cramming the night before, before the internet, traveling around with guidebooks and maps. And I did a few of those, but then I got into a routine, and it became just London and Paris. Occasionally Amsterdam, but it was London, Paris, back to London, Paris, and that was just wonderful. And I joke, I think, if I had an Instagram account then, that would have been a really fun feed.
You would have been a travel influencer and have like photos with you in pretty dresses and things like that, right?
That's right. Look at my croissant. Yeah, exactly. So look at my
Oh.
Eiffel Tower. Yeah, yeah. There is a part of me that's a little bit jealous that at some stage I would have been a travel influencer for sure.
That is so cool. So why did you decide to stay in London and Paris? Was it because London was your home and where you grew up and you just kind of knew the area?
Yeah, so actually the company I worked for, there was a Swiss company, but their every European tour basically started in London. And yes, so that was my home. It was easier. And at first I started with, I was a London-based rep. So when folks arrived in the airport, I'd be the one with the smiley face with my clipboard, "Hey, welcome." And I did that for a season. And it was during that time that I asked, "Hey, I'd really like to do some of these Paris tours." And that really taught me something that I've taken, and it's like, always ask. If you don't ask the question, the answer's no until you ask the question. And once you've asked the question, it goes from 50% no to 50% yes, and I just love that. So then I started taking groups to Paris and coming back to London and back and forth. And then about 4 years into my career, I did some northern France tours and British tours and Ireland and Scotland, and that was amazing. And then I went back to doing just London and Paris for the rest of my career. Yeah.
That is so awesome. And so you did that in your 20s. So what
Mm.
happened in your 30s that you want to share that really inspired you to come on the podcast today? Like, what was it that you're like, I need to tell my story. I need to let people know 30s is about this.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in my early 30s, I moved to New York and I worked for a British brand. And that was great. And I just loved New York City and it was very exciting. And then I moved to LA with them. And as I said, I was actually fired from my job. So I was in my mid 30s, and my walls really crashed down then. I thought, I was in a relationship and I had an apartment in LA, and my visa to be in the US was associated with my job. And I was basically given, I think it was like 3.5 weeks to pack up and return to Europe. And I guess, looking back, it's like everything works out okay. Everything is okay. And even if it's a rough learning thing, learning whatever experience it was, that's when I went home and I was like, I'm never ever working for somebody else and giving them my passion, you know? So I then made that and I did a very short little business course, how to start a business. And that was in, my mid 30s, and that's it ever since. Yeah, and not all businesses work, and it's okay,
Yeah.
but try it, but I think, looking back, it's like it works out. It's okay,
Yeah. And
but
must be really scary for you to, have to pack everything up your whole life in like 3 weeks to go back home, or you're like, no, I wanted to stay. And yeah, I guess everything does work out. And you were able to work for yourself, which my family, we come from a line of business owners and business people. So I understand what you're like, oh, I don't want to work for anyone else but myself. So when you first started working for yourself, what was that first business that you had that led you to the yoga purse and your other business inspires that you had? So you do the yoga purse and the cute laces, right? So like what got you into doing that?
all right, this is a bit of a pass. So my first business that I started was actually an online business. So we're talking, almost 20 years ago. We still had dial up. I was a little bit ahead a lot bit ahead of the curve, really. And it was inspired by the fact that I went back to, yes, my hometown, but I didn't know where to find my local yoga class or the things that were going on in my local area. So I created a website that was basically a calendar of events of looking for anything that was going on, really. Yeah, exercise classes, yoga class, whatever. And so I did that for a few years, but I was just too ahead. I was too early. Folks would be like, yeah, but I still have dial-up, and we certainly didn't have smartphones as we do today. And I ended that business after a wee while. And at the same sort of time, I had taken a yoga teacher training course, and I had the opportunity to spend some time in Turkey. I was there for just under a year, and that's when I ended up teaching yoga for a little while there. And then my next business was a brick and mortar business. I actually owned my own store, which was a creative store. It was a fabric yarn store where we taught classes, sewing, knitting, crochet, embroidery, all that kind of thing. And it was there that I started to make shoelaces for myself. So it was, and then people would say, "Hey, I love your shoelaces. Could I make them out of fabric?" And then that became a business. That was my first. In fact, that was my first US business, because by that time I'd moved back to LA. And
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So what made you decide to make shoelaces? That's such
Mm.
a different path. Like I wouldn't expect, you could just make shoelaces like that. Like
I know, right? Well, it genuinely was when I had my store, and it was learning a skill. And I was learning and I was teaching how to make bias binding, which is a diagonal piece of fabric that has a little bit of stretch, and it's used on edges or corners or edges of quilts, that kind of thing. And I was making this bias binding and thinking, what else can I do with this? And I always wore Vans and Chucks, and I'm very much like a dress girl, but wearing my Chucks. And so then I started making them. It's like, oh, they look cute. And, that's kind of, it would take me about 2 hours to make one pair. So it wasn't a business. It was just a personal accessory. I was making them for me. And then friends would say, hey, they look cute. Can I have some? So I'd make them yeah, like many folks, that's how businesses start.
That is so fun. So you did it for yourself to add extra personality to your style, and then your friends were like, "Hey, I want more of these too. Like, can you make some for me?" I just kind of like started that way, and then that led you into your yoga purse too, right?
Yeah, so yoga purse was an idea. So how my brain works is I look at things and it's like, yeah, that needs, there's something else there. I could, what else can you know, either something I want or something I need. And so with yoga purse, this was something that has been in my head, but also there's got to be a better way of carrying a yoga mat, whether it's the tiny tubes that you've got to get your mat like accurate to try and squeeze it in, or you're carrying it under your arm, or the straps. And, as women, it would be lovely if we didn't need to carry stuff, but we do need to carry stuff, and whether it's your keys or your purse. So I made one for myself, and then folks will be like, hey, where'd you get that? So yeah, so that's kind of how yoga first started.
Oh, I love that. And you still make the yoga purses by yourself, like at home and things like that? Or do you have like a manufacturer that does it for you now? Like, what do you do with that purse now?
Yeah, so with yoga purse, I make some myself, and I have a local seamstress. She's also a small business, and a woman-owned business, and so she helps as well. And we use repurposed sari fabrics that I source from a woman-owned business in India. And then we also use smaller kantha quilts, which are the beautiful hand-stitched fabric quilts from India. And a friend of mine, she hand stitches them to a certain panel for me and then sends them here. And then we make the tote bag, as you said, it's got a tote bag inside for all your essentials, and then the wrap to put your yoga mat in. So yeah.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to see them in person. I saw a bit of them online. I'm like, wow, they look so cool. Are you going to have a booth set up as well for your yoga mats, or are you just doing a workshop?
Yeah, no, I'll have a booth at Wellness Weekend Market, yeah, on the 16th as well. Yes.
I'm so excited. I'm gonna stop by and check out your yoga mats. Are you gonna do the shoelaces there too, or just the yoga mats?
Yeah, no, just the yoga first for Wellness Weekend Markets, but I do have a week booth at the Summerlin Farmers Market, which I bring both.
Oh,
I bring both. I have a little cute laces and yoga purse next to it. So yeah.
that is so amazing. I love that. And
Yeah.
so, what have you started? Because talking to you now, I kind of understand how your brain works a little bit with your business ventures. So, what was it that got you started into doing the wellness market and how you started to curate that? Was it because of the past where you're like having all of these events that you're able to create into like a blog like post type of thing? Did that kind of spark your thought into the wellness market? Like, how did the wellness market come about? Because with Danny, we talked more on what she does, the holistic interior designing, and kind of the wellness market being a thing, but not necessarily how it came about and how it can be. So, can you kind of dive into a little bit about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started about a year ago. I've been looking through like my emails, and I had this idea. So obviously we've come out of COVID, come out of the last few years, and we definitely all need some self-love, some self-care. And I love Las Vegas. Absolutely. I love being. We were supposed to be here for 3 months, and we're here. That was almost 4 years ago. Just love it. I love this place. Unlike many cities, Las Vegas obviously is very spread out, and the holistic wellness community is very spread out. Whereas if you go to LA, you go to a coffee shop, there are, cards for yoga. You're sitting beside a yoga teacher. It's way more obvious where to find your kula, which is a Sanskrit word for, your community, your tribe in the holistic wellness world. And I was meeting so many incredibly talented, wonderful people, sometimes through Yoga Purse or sometimes through different, networking events, and many of them on Zoom. And I thought, what, it'd be great if we could just get together and support each other, and maybe even create some opportunities for working together. And then it kind of from there, it was like, okay, wouldn't it be great if we could create a day of bite-sized workshops? Hey, I haven't tried yoga, or I haven't tried that style of yoga, or hey, I haven't tried Tai Chi or belly dancing, or, I'd like to try meditating, but I don't know where to start. So then the stars aligned and Danny reached out to me. She's like, oh, we met on an online networking group that Kelly Bennett used to run here, right? And then Danny reached out and said, hey, we should meet for coffee or juice. It'd be really great to chat. So we did. And then I was like, okay, let's continue this. And early January, I sort of invited a group of people in the wellness world. I'm like, hey, let's just meet up for juice and see what we can do. And then Danny, Tamara, and Dana, who that's the four of us, we met up, and I said, hey, I got this idea for this event, and I'm kind of looking for a team. It's not my event. This is not my event. It may have been, you know, planted here, but it's such a community event, and a beautiful team, and they they went, that sounds great. So we had a piece of paper that we just sketched this idea of what it would look like, and a few vendors here, and maybe we have a seated workshop here and a meditation space here, and how about we did this, and wouldn't it be great if it was had an indoors and an outdoors? So we kind of, you know, we made it come alive through a little doodle sketch, and then we started looking for a venue, and some venues were, too big, too small, and then I eventually found this venue that we were using, which is on Rampart. It's actually a wedding venue, and it's beautiful, and it's got this outdoors where the wedding usually is, and that's where we're going to have these outdoor workshops, like We've got herbal teas and how do you make your own herbal teas? We've got Amber is going to do a herbalism. Mike is going to do his cacao ceremony. And then indoors, we've got the yoga space and we got a seated workshop, which is where Danny is going to teach, her magic. And then upstairs, we've got a quiet space, which is actually where the bride usually gets ready, which where we're going to do yoga, sorry, going to do meditation and sound healing and Reiki and I'm just so excited. But that's really how it came about. It's like, and as I said, the stars aligned, and Tamara, Dana, and Danny all went, yeah, that sounds great, and we've been working on it since. So yeah.
Just hearing how it came about and like your thought process of it and all of you guys coming together and like getting it all situated and set up, like it's making me way more excited as well too. Like I'm just like talking to Danny a little bit about it, kind of seeing who's gonna be there and hearing your side of things. Like the venue that you're talking about, I've been wanting to check it out. And it's like there's I know that they have weddings and stuff, but I'm in like no way, shape, form getting married anytime soon, but I've always wanted to see, like, what it was like, and having that venue or event there is gonna be so cool because like, oh, I actually get to go and see what it's like, and I love that it has that outside and that
Yeah.
inside, like, it's gonna be a whole day of events, and I feel like Vegas needed something like that for a long time. And there's Reiki events and things like that and that people go to and that are there. But I feel like this is a different pace of spirituality, holistic things, stuff like that. And I feel like it's really cool for anyone that wants to go and check it out because there's so many different avenues and different types of things that are going to be happening, different types of energies and whatnot. So yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we've said. I love yoga, right? That's when I've been practicing yoga for almost 30 years, and teaching yoga. But that's not the only way to wellness, right? Or well-being, That's why we've got, an exercise class that's not yoga. And that's why we've got a wonderful Tai Chi instructor. And that's why we have a beautiful belly dancing instructor. So it's like, hey, and REI is involved. So they're going to bring over some of their bikes and they're going to talk about hiking in the area. So yes, to me, therefore it's not necessarily a yoga festival. And the amount of folks who I've met who are like, hey, I've always wanted to try yoga, but I never felt right. Or, Western yoga kind of also gives off a different idea of what it actually is. You got to be this or that or wear this. It's so far from what it is, but there's this marketing idea of what you should look like or be like just to step into a yoga studio. And we're literally saying, you want to try it, have a bit of fun, and then go on to, try silent or sound healing. Have you ever tried a sound bowl?
yes, I did a sound bowl like last month in Sedona, and it was wild because I tried HEPA for the first time, and I was like, "What is this? This is insane!" And so it definitely elevated my sound bowl, sound bath experience. So I didn't realize we were having a like sound meditation there as well. It's so cool. I don't know if you're doing Heppo or anything like that, but like the experience itself was really, really interesting. So yes, I've done it.
Love it, especially in Sedona with that wonderful vortex energy there. That's just amazing. So we've got a sound bowl with the beautiful crystal bowls, and then also we've got somebody she's a meditation teacher, but she uses her violin, so she'll do sound. I mean, I know, right? So she'll be
Yes, I
doing
want to
lovely
do that
sound.
one so bad.
I'll add you into that one too. But yeah, so it's just so it's and it and the point is, it's getting folks, hey, I wanted to try it, but I didn't know how or where or whatever. And even if it's once, hey, try this, and enjoy or not, and figure out actually that's not my thing. And that's
Yeah.
cool too, right? That's cool too. And we certainly wanted to make it edutainment, you know, enjoy yourself, have fun, and maybe learn something, over here about how our self-care is so, individual to what we need right now, not 5 years ago or not 5 years in the future. What do I need right now? And there's all these little bite-sized things. And plus the amazing vendors who will be there sharing their knowledge and their love of what they do, which would be incredible. We've got essential oils, we've got CBD, we've got, taro, we've got all sorts of, body products, lotions, and that'd be great.
I'm really excited about that. Thank you for sharing that because I wanted to, I was curious about more of what it is too. So thank you for explaining it and how it kind of led into your life and just I feel like it's such a great event and it kind of shows more of like who you are too and kind of like your path and things like that. So thank you so much for sharing today and for sharing your life. You're such a vibrant person and I'm so excited to meet you in person as well too because this conversation has been so fun for me.
Oh, but
So
me
thank
too. Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you. This has just been so lovely.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. And so I wanted to ask you too, through the events that happened when you were 30, what advice would you give someone who's just about to turn 30 that you wish you had when you were 30?
Yeah, I love that question. That's such a great question. I it'll be okay, you know. It'll be okay. And I always like to think, the only my dad passed away about 8 years ago. So I've been through, as many of us, and I've had depression and, you know, and I always, remind myself the only reason that we feel low is because we've known the high. The only reason we know sadness is because we know happiness, and it's that balance of life. So going through, losing my dad, the only reason I had that heartbreak, that pain of sadness was because I knew love. I felt I had love. I loved my dad. He loved me. And it's just that reminder that there's that balance of life, and no matter what happens, it'll be okay, so.
Thank you so much for that. That was a beautiful answer to the question. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being here and sharing your story. So thank you so, so, so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you on the 16th.
Yes, I can't wait to see you.
Hey friends, thank you for listening to today's episode. Please take a moment to follow and review this podcast so it could reach others. Also, if you leave a review, I'll be sharing your review in the next episode. Lastly, if you want to be part of this growing podcast to chat about your life, your profession, passions, or if you have advice that you wish you had at 30, please sign up at the link provided in the show notes. I would love to have you as a guest on the show. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.